And we're live
Hello,
with
Jess.
with Al Crego, Kano, as we call him, I guess. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Nice. Thanks for all, and happy to finally meet you, even not directly face by face, but this is a pleasure. Yes, sure.
Absolutely. We've a little background on me and Al is that I call you Al. Is that all right?
Yeah. As you
All
prefer.
right. Me and you have spoken for over a year now, I think. I think you're one of like the early people in, this kind of Web3 NFT space that we found ourselves for the last while that I connected with your work early on for obvious reasons, black and white, a little darker edge, all that, obvious reasons. But so this interview is kind of a long time coming. We've had little conversations here and there, and I find you to be a very interesting in many ways. Your work is interesting, but you as a character is also pretty interesting. So I guess, it's pretty obvious that you like to keep a low profile of who you are, etc. But if you wouldn't mind sharing who you are as much as you're willing to, because I know that you have a background, a long history. I know that you were doing like animated graffiti walls for a while and you were in with that whole crew. So maybe if you could give us like what led you into your creative path as like a beginning or an intro to you as a creative.
Sure, and I insist for this because I also know your work, and it was the past year we met on Twitter, but uh, this everything is connected some way because I knew your work from many years ago from Tumblr, where things were, let's say, out of social networks there because Tumblr is not a real social network in the sense that people is not talking and so on. So I was checking your work. I discovered a month ago that I wasn't following you, but I knew your work already because I knew who you are and all your work with the bands, and so it
And
was
all
not
the reblogging.
sure. It was for me let's say a swimming pool where we were the tadpoles trying to make our work on the web, not trying to enter social networks. But it's more for this, it's more for the fact of identity and the what I call the extimacy, the opposite of intimacy with social networks. Appear this concept that I invented some years ago about my I don't want to show my, my estimacy is what years before we call it intimacy, but with social networks people start to show who they are or who they think or who they want to show to people. And for me, since the beginning was very tricky. At the same time, I was working a lot with street artists and this kind of anonymous or not anonymous because people know their work, but not our personal. And I think I found very comfortable this way of using internet because it allows me, for example, to go to street art festivals and work as a photographer. And for me as a photographer, I need and I like to be invisible because if people recognize you, they start to speak with you, you can work, and then people, so all these things was not really intended from the first time, but when social networks appear, I start to see my friends dropping their life in these social networks. When I was looking their Instagram, and then I look them in real life, I start to think this is not, you're lying because you're building, you're building this happens to me in street art too, because I admire a lot of street artists that on the web, they look fancy and incredible and really nice guys. And in person, some of them were not. It's like, okay, so by this time in my journey in street art and animating all these kind of things, was always a kind of discovering how people is on the web and how people is in real life. And few times it's the same. So I try to not to fall in this hole, let's say, and just and also to try a way to depersonificate my work. I prefer people watch my work instead of me because I'm not a model, I'm not an artist, a dancer. So it was a kind of building my own no identity on the web. And as you know, in Tumblr, people back in the days could take our work and they use in many webs and Instagrams and Facebook and so on. And on one hand was a bit frustrating to see my work spread in all the web, most times without crediting me at all. At the same time, I was thinking, okay, if people is moving my work without being me, doing nothing, it's because it's something good on it. So this is one of the reasons still today I don't use social networks because it's a kind of way of measuring myself if my work is transcending or not. Now it's different because since 2 years ago I am on Twitter and I know that I am very insistent and so on, but at the same time, I can differ from pre NFT and post NFT because for me it's the same. It's like like a tree. And this is the point when I started to enter more in social networks. It was basically to acquire voice because I have work, but I didn't have never voice. My only voice was in street art festivals when they called me to give a speech or whatever. So one point of this to finish the identity, let's say, and start this new one was jumping into Twitter, which I might say that is being a whole world for me because I was born out of all of this. So I have to learn a lot of codes and how social networks and engagement, and at the same time it's being an inspiration too. I think I told you now in a space one day that this kind of tension of the things I don't like that I have to do, and at the same time for me is inspiration because I think that nothing is bad. It's bad, but it's inspiration, and the good things are motivational ones. So everything is together, and despite starting with street art walls, it was a kind of saying that the web is also the street and the screen are the wall. So I feel really comfortable mixing this physical work in the virtual space, and now with the Web3 what I was waiting for, actually, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. the Web3 is what I've been waiting for.
Yeah. And I think you felt the same because I guess that in the past when you were posting things in Tumblr that were dope and people took it out of your Tumblr to share in Facebook or whatever, didn't you think about I have to find a way to make something with this work that is moving around the world, but I'm not receiving nothing, So it was a way to find a way to make a contract for these digital things and go. I have an echo.
Yeah. Can you hear that at all? Sorry for technical difficulties for a second. I'm not hearing it now, actually. I heard a delay for a second. Now I do.
Now it's better?
No, it's worse. I'm so sorry, everybody.
I have the echo cancellation, but...
No, we're okay. Well, now I don't hear it. Do you hear the echo? I'm going to see just with Ali quick if he hears it.
No, I don't hear it. Yeah, sorry. I don't have a mic.
No problem. I just want to make sure that it's not being recorded, the echo at all, because I hear it sometimes and sometimes I don't. So I'm just checking with Ale, our tech guy. Shout out to Ale, who has a broken finger right now. He's having a spell of bad luck.
He's typing slowly.
It says okay now. Okay, so we're okay. Apologies, everybody, for a brief spell of technical difficulties, but that's what happens here in the future. So you touched on so many things within that segment. The thing about Web3 being just like the natural evolution, or it's hard to distinguish pre and post Web3, or you just choose not to. I choose not to as well at this point. Like maybe at first I did, but now being a year in it really seems, I can really see the connection and the flow, just like my career just moving along. I was just talking with somebody yesterday about the book that I have coming out, and I was like, the Web3 NFT thing needed to happen for my career. It's like, it was just the next thing. It wasn't like some crazy thing happened. It was like, I've been waiting for that fucking thing,
Totally agree.
Yeah,
and it can be seen on your work too, and in your course and how you were evolving. So for me, it's the natural step. When this started, people were saying, "Well, the new step of art," and blah blah blah. And I was trying to explain that this is not the new step; it's a natural step. It was a need that the web had, and even more those who were working as us, strictly digital and not painting, and we were needing it because I was rejected many times from galleries because my work was too digital. It's like what? And the same in street art. I grew up, let's say, 10 years working with strictly physical artists, and this kind of debates, I already have them for 10 years. And the funny thing always was that, no, you always do digital art, so it's not valuable. But I told always them, but when you finish a mural, the first thing you do is a picture to upload. This is the point why I relate street art a lot with Web3, because street art is the same. It's public art in the street, open to everybody. But when it jumps into the web, they lose the control of their work. Maybe there is a publication in Facebook with 3 million likes that the artist even maybe doesn't know about it. So if we have this kind of links about the contract and where it's going, it's not about control to make to allow or not people using. It's the opposite. It is to know who is using it, and if also a kind of way if you to know yourself if your work is being transcendental for somebody. So for me, it's a natural step. It's not something. Let's do something new. It's the natural step.
What you said about when somebody would finish a mural, the first thing it would do is take a picture. And I mean, that was even a decade ago, people were doing that, like, and that is very similar. And that's people that are paying attention to me and following me are probably sick of the story. But like, that's the same as me back in the day, realizing, back when I lived in a smaller, city in the middle of the country, didn't have as much opportunity, realizing that like, I don't care what the physical thing really looks like anymore, as long as it looks good digitally, because where are more people going to see it? Like, how many people are going to see it physically? At maximum, hundreds if it's in a gallery. But once you put it online, millions possibly. Yeah. So what's more important? Where is it better to look? Like where do you put your focus? And that's what I did. I put it all online. I just was like, I'll throw away the finished piece. I don't give a shit about that physical thing, and only for the online. And embarrassingly at the time, because that was like, very early, when I feel like real artists would be like, that is that's blasphemy, like complete blasphemy to them,
But at the same time, I think this has more to be about the artist than the piece itself, because I mean, every artist say that I work for me and I create for me. Of course, I create for me, but at the same time, I create for people. Otherwise, I usually think about a question is, if I was living alone in the world, totally alone, I will be doing art. I think that I wouldn't, because when I think joy is maybe in the fact of creating, but then...
Go. Sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting, please.
No, you understand. It's like a metaphor of a mental...
Absolutely. Like, I think about it all the time. I think about this idea of like making art for yourself versus making art for other people, because you never want to make art for the audience or let your audience lead your work. Of course, that would be terrible. But like, when people talk about this dynamic, I struggle. I really do, because I'm like you, where it's like, I feel like somebody viewing the work is the completion in a way, or like that is actually completing a cycle. It needs that to be completed. And when you said like, if I was just living alone in the woods, would I still be making art? I wonder that same thing. And I come to the conclusion of probably not, because I would just think about it. I can entertain myself in my head, like I don't need to like go through the trouble of doing the stuff. Like I can, I can kind of entertain myself creatively in my own head, and I would probably garden or something,
Maybe you do it, or we will do it in the sense of entertainment, to spend time with ourselves, but in the sense of creating something that you think that deserves to be shown, or some idea you think that can. I start to focus on art mostly when I understand that what books did to me. For example, when you are reading a book or watching a film, something in your head makes click and it allows you see better the world. I thought when I was child, I want this. I want to be a guy that creates something, and what I did can trigger something in your mind. No more. Maybe you don't like it because, for example, I don't like too much Dali, but trigger my mind when I was child. So nowadays I can differ what I like from what is good or bad done. So this is the point. So the internet is like, this is the way I write a lot of times, that the internet is the canvas for me. Because as you said, for example, I checked last year how visitors of the Museum of Prado here in Madrid were in 2018. I think it was 4 million, and 4 million is maybe the views we have in Giphy every month. So for me, so what I prefer, to be in a museum that maybe not everybody is understanding what they are seeing, because when you go to a museum, you are entering a place that is, you have to be submissive. This is the art, and you are a human. But on the web, everything is missed. And if your work transcends in this huge amount of data and a lot of crazy things, it must be, maybe, with no promo and with nothing, that is interesting for people. Another thing is you make, a social media strategy and study all this side, that I know how it works, but I never try to do that, because for me, it's like fake to myself, it's like I could be paying for promo and these kind of things, but I understand on the other side, if you are more a producer than an artist, let's say, or I call producer people who create for audience, not for despite your ideas. But I don't know. I prefer to. I have millions of ideas on my head, to stop only on one that people like. It's not my work. That's it's crazy. That.
No, I'm sorry. No, that's just so well. it's so well said because I just understand it deeply, like because I'm very aware of the work that I do that very much hits the audience and it does the best and everybody fucking loves it and it gets tons of
Yeah,
likes
yeah,
and reposts and reblogs and whatever. And then there's this other, there's other forms of art that I make that they don't get as much. People like it, but not as much, and I could just focus on this one kind and probably just fucking kill.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like I just don't because that's not the only thing that entertains me. I have too many ideas that I want to explore and
exactly,
ways of entertaining myself. Exactly
exactly.
like you said, to just stop on one that everybody else likes would be ridiculous. It would be like a disservice to
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, it's
You
ridiculous.
can't do that.
It's
Yeah,
like,
and you would see that in the work. Yeah, that's
and even
hilarious.
more,
I love that.
and even more nowadays that we have many new tools and many good technology even for free that allows you to explore more this point. So I understand and respect this kind of artists that find their point and they work around it, but I will feel like a jail. It happened to me maybe when I started with the street art gifs and they went viral. Yeah, I think it was for 5 6 months, posting almost every day, and one day I realized that maybe I was falling in the same that I was criticizing
Mm-hmm.
my friends, and I have this thought, I am creating this for me because I love it, or for people. And I realized that at this point I was creating for people because
Mm-hmm.
my ideas now here in the notebooks were being forgotten. So I have to stop. I start to post less street art and keep doing my own path because at the same time I was feeling that this merit was not completely mine because I worked from their work. So so let's say that I used in some way this viral of street art to get more known. But when I have the spot on me, I say, hey, I also know how to do my own work. It's not only about collaboration with big street artists and so on. And this is the reason I stopped in some way because I start to find my own voice and my own way of working and mixing street art with digital art, whatever. So nowadays I feel really comfortable with this approach, and I have the feeling that it's new. So we have a lot of blank canvas in the web nowadays that can use. So I think this is where things are going now, not only on Twitter, because things are getting very tight in Twitter. Let's say very, I don't know how to explain in English, very canalized or everything in Twitter. So I think at some point it will go out Twitter too, and maybe to Instagram or to Tumblr again. I don't know. It's like a tree, it's growing a lot of branches, and we can choose. Sometimes I get shocked that people is not realizing that we have many new branches, empty to start from scratch, and people is repeating
Mm-hmm.
patterns. At the same time, they are saying they are building the new step of art, doing what was done 100 years ago. So sometimes it's a quite dissonant for me, but I am enjoying it.
Um,
I agree.
Yeah, to your last point here about all the branches, sometimes to me that is quite, it can be overwhelming, but like even just the thought of that is interesting to me because I mean, everybody, it should be interesting to everybody because we're so used to a world where everything's been done, where when you have an idea, you kind of have to like look it up, just make sure it hasn't been done before, or
Yes,
like you
yes,
find what people have done before. But within this Web3 ecosystem, we're actually at a forefront where like we're on a frontier, a real frontier. I mean, I guess like tech people are on frontiers all the time, and certain industries are always on frontiers. I've never been on a frontier besides my own artistic journey frontier.
yes.
I'm on the frontier of my own shit all the time, obviously,
This is
right? Trying to
beautiful.
make something new all the time. But being on the frontier of something with other people in a community is something brand new to me. That like when it comes to mind of like, whoa, that hasn't been done. We can do that. We can choose to do, and no, like, whoa, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like that is a very cool thing, and I think actually just that's what FakeWhale is doing. I mean, me and
True.
Sky are talking all the time, and we're like, it dawns on us like that hasn't been done. Oh my god, do that right now! Holy fuck! Like, and it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
blowing
yeah.
our mind. So,
I
but
feel
yeah,
that, and I think this is a key point: the fact of thinking, doing that now, because everything is go fast, and if you don't do it, another guy will be doing it. It's not.
exactly. I mean,
I mean,
exactly. That's why we are trying to move extremely fast with FakeWhale with all of our ideas. It's
yeah,
like get it out the door immediately. But anyways, not to get off topic or go off in that tangent, because I do want to touch on something you said earlier, because it's where we started, and I don't want to get caught back up in it or anything. But I do want to make the point because what we were talking about like you said about how you were doing graffiti stuff or good graffiti work, and then realizing that what am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for other people? And then realizing, oh, I'm doing this for the audience, etc.
Yeah.
That is exactly, it's Picasso that said, right, that like success can be the most dangerous thing, or success is like the most dangerous thing. And I
Sure.
think it's Picasso, and I've said this before, and his reason for that was because you start trying to copy yourself then. And I didn't, I understood it intellectually, but then maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I experienced it on a very deep level where I couldn't, like, I was worried. I was like, I'm all dried up. I'm tapped out. I don't got any more new ideas. Fuck. And I'm like looking back, what worked? I'm trying to copy where I captured the lightning before, and
Totally.
that feeling of trying to capture the lightning where you had it before might be the most soul sucking experience I've ever went through. It was like a dark night of the soul, you know, like of like just being completely disgusted with myself and like not able to like recreate the lightning and not recreate that magic that people like before, and just grasping for it, trying
Yeah.
to. It was the worst, and you know, in that quote really just echoed in my
Can
head
I ask?
because, you know,
Can I ask? Because for me, it's an important detail. It was by you, by yourself, or it was because you were in a, let's say, community that made.
no. I was very much. I've never been in an artistic community until now. And like Tumblr back in the day was an
Yeah.
artistic community, and I participated in some communities of collage artists, like something called We Are Fucking Awesome, which was a collective of collage artists around the world and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I did that kind of stuff. But that was, you know, way back, early Tumblr, 10,
Yeah. Yeah.
29, 2010. And then, but no, I wasn't in any community. So when I was going through this dark night of the soul, it was like, it was like a year or so after my book came out, maybe 2019 around, and I was just alone, you know. I was just like, I found that I was too tightly associated with social media. Like I count, like I realized that I was getting a lot of dopamine from that. Like, I don't like using that dopamine word because like I think it's overused, but like I was getting those dopamine hits too much from that world, you know, from that place. And my value was getting tied up in whether or not people liked what I was doing and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it just started to crush me. Like, I was on the verge, actually. I mean, it's what it like it went on for like a year, maybe a year and a half, and leading into the pandemic. And then really Web3 is what saved everything. Like, I was on the verge of kind of becoming more of a hermit, deciding
Yeah.
to live a little bit more out off the grid, out in the country a little bit. Farming started sounding real, you know,
Yeah.
appealing to me and stuff like that. And then Web3 came around. Sky Golpe gives me a call one day. Hey, you're one of my favorite artists. Remember you from back in Tumblr? Be part of this show. And
Yeah.
you know, the rest is history. It changed my life. Here I am right now, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I met him. I met him in Switzerland some weeks ago, and he's a nice guy. And we were talking about that too. So you said that maybe because it's happening to me too, that in this kind of blog that you start to think if you must do the same and repeat and blah. For me, for example, was in Web3 was when I entered Twitter, it was a kind of liberation because I have many years ago a lot of works thought to be in this ecosystem and I didn't have it. But when I start to get involved there it was like a kind of liberation because okay, now all these ideas I have here waiting that were almost, you know, that these ideas that eat your head and when I will release that and why I did this. Nowadays is for me it's a bit of liberation because now I have the, you know, the pot to place these ideas, because before it was no sense and we were losing work and losing sense about why we're
yeah.
so
Well, and that's a, I mean, something talked about a lot already too, but like that's such a great point, is like that social, like I use social media a lot, and I know you didn't. Like, so I did, like, I was on Facebook for a while, but I quit that pretty quick, pretty earlier, you know, than I think most people are still on it. I'm not. But I use Instagram heavily, like very heavily, and the reward structure of it is just so fucked up because you don't get anything. You put
yeah,
so much fucking effort into it, and you can get this big following, and then all of a sudden they change the algorithm on you, and you feel like it was all for fucking nothing. It makes
this
your value feel like nothing. Makes you feel valueless. Like, I
yes
put all this time and energy into creating an authentic, organic following. I never paid for a follower. I never did a paid advertisement. I never emailed anybody asking for anything. Organic, authentic following. And
yeah
then algorithms just change, and all of a sudden you're not getting any likes. but the likes were the only thing you had, because those likes weren't money, they weren't real value, they weren't anything. But now with Web3, there is somewhat of a reward structure that it's not everything, I don't
Sure.
think, at least, but at least it's visible, where
Yeah,
where
this is
where
a good
and
point.
we feel valuable. We like, we're starting to feel maybe more like musicians or something, we're like, musicians get paid for everything, even if it's
This is
pennies,
the yeah, this is
Spotify.
a crazy point I never understood, because I was all these years trying to explain this to my street art friends that, come on, wake up. These companies are the richest in the world, and they are rich because I call this human resources. Because when people,
Yeah, yeah.
I always say the same parallelism is, my father was from his 18th year old until he's almost 60, working in a coal mine, working 12 hours a day.
Wow.
Imagine that my dad was working there without being paid. Because
Yeah, yeah.
nowadays the what has value is the data, and Instagram and Facebook are the most petrol, oil station of data. So for me, it was very dissonant to hear a lot of street artists to speak about, against the system and change the world and blah, blah, blah. At the same time, they were feeding the new golem, the myth of golem, that you feed it and then it will eat it. So for me,
Hmm.
this point, when I try to explain that the Web3 started much before NFTs, because Web3 is a
Oh yeah.
mindset. It's not a Web3 is how we call the internet, but it's a mindset. And in my case, I was always decentralized, in the sense that when I was 15, I was already reading about decentralization and and the hacker ethics and these kind of things. Because, for example, Aaron Swartz, this guy was very inspiring to me back in the days when I discovered this guy that invented CCO and start to build the RRSS of the web. And I think, okay, this guy is inspiring for me, but I'm not a programmer, I'm not a coder. So when I try to say is the same, but with image or with GIFs. So at the end is, I think, is realizing that we are not human resources for companies as Facebook and Instagram. And then Web3 allows us, as you said, to feel valuable as artists, not as a human resources that you can do, giveaways or some products that Nike give you. It's not our word. So nowadays we are co-living influencers and artists, and they are not the same for me. You understand? It's different.
Yeah. Amen to that. Yeah, yeah. It's funny because the influencer was born out of the artist, I think, or out of like the Instagram artist or the social media artist.
Okay.
Because early on in Instagram days, I remember everybody telling me, like, of course you're getting a big following. Like, you're a visual person. Instagram is a visual thing. The artists did the best on it, and then I feel like the influencers came and kind of like stole all of the ways of using it, and
Yeah.
then perverted it and like bastardized it into a thing where now the artist, you can't even get seen
Yeah.
without being some kind of gimmick, some kind of fucking shtick or something you have
Yeah.
to have to like get really seen or to catch on in any sort of meaningful way. But
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so like, this is something that definitely wanted to come up in this conversation, is like, you have a more um I don't want to ever come off as inflammatory or like trying to fan flames and be, like a gossip or like whatever.
Yeah.
But you do have a certain presence online that is very known, and it is somewhat controversial. And before going into it, I want to even touch on this, the use of you not using Instagram at all and stuff, because I totally understand what you're saying. I get it. I get why you wouldn't want to use it. Um, but I don't quite understand. So, like, I'm an idealist in a lot of ways, for sure, but I'm also pretty practical in most ways. And if I can see something, even if it's not perfect or even if it's not exactly what is needed, I can see that it's a stepping stone, maybe, or I can see that I may be able to use it as a necessary evil in a short term to get somewhere else with it, right? And that's what I saw Instagram as, and I still use Instagram quite a lot, because
Sure.
the Instagram story function is unlike anything else. There's nothing like that on Twitter. There's nothing like that on other things. And I find that story system, if people pay attention to my stories on Instagram, they would see that I use that as a canvas. That is
Yeah.
actually like, my Instagram stories are actually quite beautiful. There's no fucking bullshit. There's no, it's pretty, and I don't see another way of doing exactly what I'm doing there. I would actually like to be able to import my fucking, Instagram story feed into my next gallery show. I think would be
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. But anyways, I'm just wondering, like, what was it like? Why? why did you never see the necessary evil of it at all? Or like why, like, because without Instagram I wouldn't have the following I have now. I wouldn't have had all the opportunities of working with the people I have. And even though it wasn't perfect and I didn't get paid as much, I was undervalued, undersold, at every turn. It's
Yes,
still got me here right now to some degree. I can't imagine
of
not
course.
using it. And so I just want to understand a little better, because this is a conversation you and I have had offline as well to a
Yeah,
degree.
yeah. I I think
So
there
like,
is
yeah,
only a word, I think, and I explain because I think it's a kind of sacrifice, because I am aware of how social network works. I study them since the beginning, but I study them because I don't use them. It's like am it's like when you go to the sea and look at the fishes how they move, and then you fish. But I mean, it's a kind of sacrifice in the sense that I know that if I was inside, many people told me even more in the past when my work went viral, I will have a lot of millions of followers and these kind of things. But on one hand, for me, it's something ethical of not. As I never did that, I never use Spotify. I don't have Netflix. I don't have nothing of this in first instance because I don't need it. I spent all my day working on music. I don't need anymore. I love writing. I have here to paint. Now my VR glasses. I don't have time to lose time. It's a kind of way. So for me, the entertainment, I watch a lot of films in the past. I play a lot of video games in the past. But when I find my passion about mixing photo, video, and GIF, everything this disappeared. Not in a bad way. So in the other hand, not using Facebook and Instagram also for this because I need time. For me, just being these 2 years in Twitter is a work because I have to change my routine that was really strong about disconnected in the way of from the world from social networks, but at the same time very connected because I was always really aware about artificial intelligence and all these kind of tools, but never use them by now because I don't feel I need it. And at the same time, now in the more philosophical, sociological ways, because I don't want to be accomplished of making rich the more rich people that
yeah,
use using humans as data no more. I told my friends many times, if Facebook or Instagram were paying you, maybe I will use it because I don't want to
hmm
feel a. So imagine that now Instagram start to implement NFTs, and if you post a work and you have 3 million likes, they have to pay you because they are using this data. Not only the data of your image, who is looking it, what they do, how they
hmm
interact, if they share or not. So all this kind of metadata that people seem to accept blindly because yes, since the beginning I was really I felt always like, okay, these guys are making rich, manipulating a lot of people because when you study more the neuromarketing and how this works, is terrified. And when you go deeper and you start to think how, I don't know, medical data is being sold by others and, these kind of things sounds paranoid until you start to study them and you realize that they are even worse. So in the sense
Bro, it's
that,
not paranoid at all. Like, it's not paranoid at all. Fucking Mark Zuckerberg had to
yeah,
appear in
yeah,
front of
no,
fucking Congress. Like, it
yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
be
yeah.
more fucking
No,
serious, I guess, to like tell them.
I say paranoid because when I speak with my parents that I know not very old, but they are not, let's say, from this kind of codes, they think, oh no, you're thinking too much, and I show them documentaries and try to educate my fathers in this case so they can be aware. They is when they shock. It's like, oh, this is not a paranoid. It's worse because the worst dystopia is the one we are living in because we don't realize that. So at the same time, this fact of not using social networks I'm enjoying a lot because it's like I am walking in my own path, looking inside platform, inside Instagram. Because, for example, when I am in a street art festival, I approach the artist and I tell, for example, hey, I saw your last work in Instagram, and they told me, but you don't use Instagram. Yes, but I have the favorites tag. I can add you to favorites in my computer. So when I remember about you, I go check your Instagram. I don't need. I mean, I am a true follower because I am following you without following you. You understand? It's like more. It's a kind
I
of
get it.
effort. So
I
in
get it,
some way,
man.
I enjoy not being inside that.
I
If there
get
is,
it. Like,
if there came a day that I need or I start to have lack of work for, maybe I do. But nowadays, with Web3, I don't need not even this idea. So, but I respect when people use them, and if they are artists, I totally respect. What I don't understand really is when people just share, their daily life with no reason. I am eating here because this is giving data for free that and you are being used.
yeah.
So, but I don't have nothing against Instagram when artists know as you do. as you show and use it as a canvas. As I am doing this, I will do that. This is nice, of course, but at the same time, I not inside for this ethical. I am very stubborn about some kind of thing, so and I not need it. If someday I need
it's good. I like that you're stubborn. It's what's very interesting about you. You know, I'm not going to pry too hard on the IG thing because there's really like no right answer there. I guess it is just kind of a personal thing. You know, it's a personal decision on how you, and you know, if you want to give data to, you know, whatever. I don't understand a lot of those people either that just are posting their daily life. Honestly, I've been like muting most of them and shit, and like because it's just because like you said earlier too, and this is not new, but it's like that's not even real. Like it's a weird cherry picking of event. But anyways, I don't want to go down that path. I want to bring up just parlay that into this is that it is on Twitter. At least weekly, I think I see you get into some sort of like argument or whatever, but it's not really arguments, like debates maybe, you know, and whatever. And like I've seen in the past, and I wish I would have saved the exact quote of yours where you've said before, like just because you're, how did you word it? I don't even remember. But it was basically saying that just because you're saying something negative, it might not be coming from a negative place, or you find inspiration in the bad even and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And I found that interesting because I do too. I get it. Or you find inspiration in the contrast or controversy even or whatever. And the other day I saved a quote of yours or a tweet that I thought, I'm like, this is perfect. It says, "My work is the magnet, my words the filter." I laughed so fucking hard at that because it seems just eloquent, but it's really funny if you know you, because it's your work. Your work is like so magnetic, and you even call them hypnotic machines. It draws people in and will make people just like sit at it. But then this is like a joke you're making about yourself, right? My work, the filter, like because then people read what you're writing and like, fuck this guy.
I know. I am aware because since I am a child, I am quite like, you know, between very serious and very ironic, because I discovered in life that if you want to explain people directly, you know, in a serious tone and giving reasons, they don't listen. But when you play with humor or with sarcasm or irony, is when, I mean, maybe some people hate this tweet. At the same time, I know they won't forget it, because when something triggers you in this way, for good or bad, you remember it. And actually, I wrote this tweet thinking about other artists. I mean, sometimes I imagine I discover a rapper that I love a lot. These raps are nice and the lyrics are nice and blah, blah. The first thing I do when I discover a new musician, rap mostly, is watching an interview. And if I don't like him in the interview, I don't know why my head says, okay, I don't like this guy. Because maybe in the lyrics, he's one image of him, and the music and all the video clip is very nice. But then in the interview, he's, stupid or really, proud or whatever. So it happened to me. Some piece of art are a magnet to me. Oh, wow, this is incredible. And then the words, how the artist is what repels me. And I think I am not different as anybody in the world, so it happens the same, and maybe for you. And the same with in the opposite, because sometimes some people maybe don't like my work too much because it's too dark, and when they read my tweets, they understand that I am playing with dark, but to use light, because my point of view is always positive. It's always doing everything more or criticizing something to get it better. I don't criticize, for example, economy, because I don't know nothing about economy. But if we are talking about art, about gifts, about how the digital is where I was born, so it's the only thing I know. So I don't argue about what I don't know, and these kind of quotes also are a kind of filter to me. I mean, if you don't understand this quote and you unfollow me, it's okay, because you are not prepared for what I'm explaining. So, and if you understand them, you are welcome. So I use Twitter, yes. I discovered that I used to write a lot in my notebook, but since I am on Twitter, I write much less. So I am using Twitter as a way of quoting my thoughts, and I don't expect nothing. It's okay. I thought that about light, and sometimes they act as magnet, and sometimes about repel. The first rule for every artist in the world is you have to understand that you can't like everybody. It's impossible. So this is a kind of filters I use, and I prefer to have, let's say, 10 people that understand what I do instead of 1 million that they are here for the hype. I don't like that. And this is what happened to me in Tumblr. In 1 month, 80,000 followers, and I knew that maybe only 10 understand what I am doing. And nowadays I can see in Twitter, because people is saying that my street art animations are new. No, I've done 10 years ago, but and this was and I think this is a very important thing about that was the social networks, because when social networks, everybody got their head inside them, forgetting all the internet that was happening around. And nowadays with Web3, people is taking out their heads from social networks and looking, oh, this is bigger than I thought. So not everything was in social networks, At the same time, I was from outside looking both. I was working on the free web, let's say, and at the same time, I was looking from outside social networks. So I was learning from both. I don't know. It's like a game in some way, the game of the internet, that you have to do some move and take looks in some place, study how to develop. Because if you don't study nowadays how Web3, for example, works, or how Bitcoin is related with all of these things, you will get lost, I think. I see this a lot in many people who is entering Tethos. It's nice, but I talk with them and they have nothing of knowledge about how crypto, the only crypto side, about Bitcoin, how Bitcoin influences in the price of Tethos and so on. It's hard. It's like like taking a ship without not knowing about winds or stars. You will get lost, or you will get learn in the hard way. Getting lost and then. So it's inspiring. I said sometimes it's sad because it's very frustrating, but at the same time, this frustration at the next day is inspiration. It's okay. I don't like that. How can I fix it? So maybe you do an idea or a loop inspired on this to explain. For example, the amniotic culture series is, let's say, a critic or a portrait of what I was living out of the social networks and when I jump inside Twitter. Because amniotic culture, I call this name to things that I know that I don't want to know. I never saw the Gangnam Style, for example, this song, but I know it. Why? Because the amniotic culture is everywhere, and even more, in the amniotic culture, the social networks are the umbilical cords. And if you are inside them, you are every day, bombarding with a lot of amniotic culture that is things that you know, but you don't know to know, So in this series, I was trying to depict this and using these lights of, the lines of light as the data that is feeding everybody since we are born. So nowadays I am living in this amniotic culture because I am inside Twitter too. I am part of what I'm criticizing, but I thought it was a need to speak about it. Otherwise I will be speaking from outside. It's not legitimate.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just said it. Here's that echo again. Check. Now it's gone. I don't know what that is. Apologies for everybody. But anyways, you just said it. It's to be able to criticize something, you have to be part of it, in my opinion, and at least because otherwise, what? I don't know. If you're not part of something, how do you say something about it? I'm not listening to somebody who's just criticizing something that they are not. You have to participate to understand. You have to understand to criticize, and to understand, you have to participate. That's basically it.
In music or in painting or whatever. I mean, I'm not a perfect painter, or not. I don't even try. But when I'm with street artists that are genius, I shut up. I only listen because I want to learn. But there is another kind of people that arrive there next to the painter and start. Oh, this color is not as you said. This is not. Come on, do it yourself, and then when you find that how hard it is, you can criticize, but always trying to give some to offer something. Not these people that only criticize and then shut up. No. If you criticize, there must be a law that you must propose something or shut up. No more. It's
I like that. Yeah. I really like what you said about I don't know anything about economy, so I don't fucking talk about economy. I listen. I pay attention to your Twitter, and it is. Nobody else ever thought that, I'm sure, but now you saying that, people will be like, "Oh yeah, he's only talking about what he knows about." But so many people, why do they get so? Why do you think people take what you say so offensively, and why is there so much controversy? And I don't want to say controversy because that implies some sort of that you did something. And there's a story, but it's why do you think that the way that you are and you choose to approach social media and I guess your public facing side, why do you think that stirs up so much in people that they want to antagonize back almost?
Yeah, I think I don't feel it as controversial because I must say that I never I don't have haters. I never
Yeah, well,
have
it's not
somebody.
controversial because controversial would imply some sort of scandal. There's no
Yeah,
scandal
yeah.
here. It's just like
No, this
your personality seems to
yeah,
cause people to, it upsets people sometimes when you say things, you know,
yeah,
people
yeah.
get upset or they get hurt. Why? Why are they getting hurt?
I think that there is one reason is because since the first days in Web3, the toxic positivity was a flag. You know, it was like whack me and good morning and everything was that. And this is well studied in in politics and in neuropsychology that giving a speech that is positive reach more people than the other one. So in this whole panorama of hyperpositivism, I try always to do the opposite. I mean, I'm not a pessimist, but if I see that a bridge is about to fall, I will say, "Hey, this is wrong, mate. So let's fix it." I never criticize something to destroy it. When I criticize something, it's because I'm thinking that is wrong, and it's because on my area, So I think people understand my words sometimes as grumpy or whatever for two reasons. One, I think is the tone, because in my voice have no tone in Twitter, because when people meet me in real life, they realize that I'm mostly funny, ironies, and with a good intention. And the other reason is because people is not used to be criticized, because I mean, I saw this many times in my life and in my other artist friends, that when you only surround by people that applause you, sometimes it's not that they are doing nice things. It's maybe that they don't want to say you that you are doing shit. But I am a kind of guy, and my friends nowadays know, and they call me for, hey, can you come here and criticize what I'm doing? Because my friends know that I will applaud them, of course, but then I will say where I think that is wrong, with objective to fix it, not more. So when people is get used to only have applauses and likes and all is good, and this fake positivism, when one appears says the opposite, they feel bad. And I don't care, because when I criticize something, is to make it better. It happens with the Marina Abramovic drop, with these GIFs chopped from a film, blah, blah. I wrote a quick thread criticizing not the piece, not the event, not nothing about that. I only said that the GIFs were poor, and it's
I didn't see
because
that.
because I explained why they were poor, because they were bad stabilist, they were bad crop, not perfect loop, and
Bad stabilized, you said?
yeah, but
Bad
stabilized.
stabilized. What else? Bad crop, bad stabilized. I'm just curious because I bought, I got one of those, but I didn't get a GIF. I'm really glad I didn't get a GIF, but I just got a still. But I did see the GIFs, and I'm just curious. What was it? They weren't stabilized very well. What were the other technical things?
Yeah, this is this wavy they have is when you stabilize a very long video in After Effects, for example.
Yeah.
It uses the first frame and the last as reference. But if you have to do 300 frames for doing it right, you have to do 300 times. So when you stabilize these 5 seconds, and even more, if you want to do it better and to save space as a GIF, you can use Cinemagraph technique, where you stop all the motion where there is no motion and only remain in the flag, for example. But in this case, I wasn't criticizing Abramovic work at all. I don't care about Abramovic. It's like you tell me, hey, this is a Goya exhibition. You can buy a Goya and imagine that the canvas is rusted and about to break. I don't want that, because the format in digital is very important too. It's not just a GPG. You have to have a good GPG with nice resolution, focus, sharpen. And I think there is a lack of education about, for example, what this concerns to me about GIF, because people nowadays, many people still asking me, what's the difference between video and GIF? Curators, big curators, and I say like, okay, I have tons to explain already. So it's I don't know. I mean, about the question, I'm not offended when people get offended. I am enjoying it because it's.
Yeah, well, no, the follow-up tweet, I think. It was 15 minutes earlier because I screenshotted them both. It's a pleasure to be unfollowed and/or blocked, for being honest. Really, yeah. I mean, so that says it. I love what you're saying about this Maria Abramovic thing, because like she probably didn't even have anything to do with the production of that. She made that video like 15 years ago or something, and then probably maybe even the Circa team, which is the platform that they released it on. Somebody on that team may have just quickly done all that, and it's just to me that's fascinating that I looked at them and was like, I can see, like they're not whatever, but to have somebody who's like a GIF expert be like, this is how that was done. And it was not done as perfectly as it could have or should have been. And I love that personally. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah,
I love it. And it honestly, it doesn't change my opinion of the work. it changes maybe my opinion of the process that they went through, but I still think, to me, that was a moment in history rather than, anything. But I love that you can criticize that technique. It would be the same as if I took a collage that was like, well, the content's good, but like this person does not know how to hold an X-Acto blade. See right here, they held it at this angle, and you can see the white of the paper and blah blah blah.
This is.
I totally get it. It's fucking great. And
this is about reading art. It's not only to watch; it's to read how it's done.
Yeah, and so I've been trying to dovetail this somehow into this concept that you have. And I don't think I need to really, because it's directly related. You're deeply philosophical, it seems like. It seems as if every decision you make, maybe even in your entire life, but certainly within your art practice, is based on some sort of thought process that you've had that led you there, rather than just like pure aesthetics, or even just like, for me, the artistic moment can be 5 seconds that I wasn't ready for, where I just go blah, and it's like something, for you, it seems like it's deeply thought out, and then you choose the best ways of showing it.
I think it has
I just want to tie this to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I'm just trying to get to this point of, you have a theory or a philosophy called noism. And that is philosophy where you talked about how any ism turns into a cult or something like that. That is what it said in the FakeWhale explanation. So if you could, please tie this together for me, because I still don't understand what noism is completely, because like any isms are like, there's Catholicism, Judaism, Buddhism, they're all isms, right? There's even atheism is an ism. So what isn't an ism? What is the contrary, and how does this tie to this entire art practice idea?
Yeah, the contrary is ity. Let's say from Cubism, when there is an ism, the terminology ism is not my opinion. Is about etymology. Implies norms, rules, and how it's done. For example, if you want to do Cubism is over in the same exact moment that Picasso named it, because you can't invent Cubism anymore. But if you focus on Cubicity, you change ism by ity, everything changes. Opens a new door. I mean,
I'm sorry to stop, just because there's a little bit of your accent might be throwing me off. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Are you saying Cubism?
Yeah, Cubism. Yeah.
Or like the art movement, Cubism. I got you. Okay.
Even more easy. Realism, okay? Realism and reality. If you change the ism by ity, everything changes. Pointillism, the ism is a closed concept, but the ity, the realism is a closed concept. It has rules.
Itty, it sounds funny to say itty, but like in itty, I get it. Like it is an ongoing process almost, right? Like it's a happening rather than, and you're saying an ism is kind of a closed static thing.
Yeah, and when you invent an ism, or some people who invent isms, you can't invent them anyway. They are closed. Cubism is closed. You can use now Cubism in your pieces that maybe you are inventing your own ism. For example, this is the reason I say funnily the giftigism. It's a play of words with pointillism, but nowadays the basic shape is not the point as it was in painting. Is the pixel, and if I do it in motion, it's in GIF. So giftigism is a way of closing, this definition I'm trying to say, but to keep on. The giftigist pieces are the black and white one I do only with 1 pixels and no more. And at the same time, this goes even further for just think about the word community, okay? Everybody is nice with community. Now try to speak about communism in Twitter. You see how the ism, you understand why I try to say no ism, because ism is a way of saying no boundaries, no laws, don't put me walls.
But it's still useful. Like the terms are still useful. Like because there's no cubity. Like cubism works, but cubity doesn't, does it? Like does it to you maybe? Cubity?
Yeah, the cubicity of an
Cubicity would be it. Cubicity? Is that a word, man?
I mean, in Spanish, there is. I mean, in English, the cubicity of an sphere, you can have an sphere, but its cubicity is a cube.
Okay.
You understand? And
okay.
Between this sphere and this cube, there is a gap. And
if you can tell, like my gears are turning as we're having this conversation because it's new to me. This is actually like new concept that it doesn't happen to me often, where somebody brings something up that makes me like in real time try to keep up. It's
this is
super cool. The
this
community
tradition.
communism one is a perfect example that I feel like almost everybody would get and strikes to the heart, even though I don't like putting that bad connotation on communism exactly. It's just never been done right. Just it's like all of them, you know, like
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
knows. But anyways, that's fascinating. But so in the fake whale write up, was the cult part what we wrote about it? And that's a weird question, but like, or do you say that like it turned into a cult? And then is a cult like to you a closed circuit at that point? A cult is kind of a closed thing, like a closed idea, like it's just static, kind of a dead thing. And I
Yeah.
like, yeah,
This,
okay,
I think the description of community of this piece, I think it was something like in communities hierarchies, in tribes responsibilities, because when you are in a cult, first there is a icon, there is a guy who is the leader. In tribes there is no leader. The people itself start its role, and this is the reason I prefer tribes, because they are developed by inertia, the inertia of, let's say, doing art, but in a cult, people join to make this cultural, this iconic icon bigger. And I never like this kind of.
mm,
I have a lot of friends, but I never have a close circle of friends. I think I wrote about this in Twitter. Like I like groups of people that are made or from people that don't have group of people that they can fit everywhere. Because when you depend on your community, you have to take care of it. And this is the reason I don't have Discord community or whatever. Why? Because I trust that my work is that what much
yeah,
generates
well,
not me. If I do it, I could do it. Take my mask and put my face in Instagram and start to explain everything. It's not my work. I'm not an actor. I'm not a model. I'm not at least is how I want to focus. So in this kind of things, the cult is, we were seeing these past years how cults were made about one artist and start to build his community and then become a cult that you forget about the piece. Where is the piece? I don't know, nobody cares. I try to do the opposite. So, and I respect that people do that. It's not it's something that I criticize because I feel it too in my past, and it's something I think it's not. It can be a jail for the artist at the end, because if you depend on a community and you want to go and another, aesthetic or technique, if community doesn't like it, you are over. So I prefer not to rely in these concepts about communism and community and
yeah. I mean, I'm really the exact same way when it comes to that form of thought. When it comes to the idea of not wanting to rely on community to support me always, like I'm very self-sustaining. I want to be self-sustaining, but making a community out of people who don't have other communities, I really love that idea, and I see that is exactly happening with a lot of Web3 communities
yeah,
are built that way. It feels like Fake Whale being one of
yeah.
them.
It's
We're the island of the misfit toys here. And I love what you're saying about it, because a lot of people would see that in a negative light. Oh, I don't want to be part of community. I don't want to have to support or help to upkeep a
yeah.
community. I don't want that either. That's responsibility. I'm looking for the least amount of responsibility possible.
This is a key
Um,
word. A key word. Responsibility
so
is a key word.
yeah, responsibility to me, responsibility is a nasty word in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
besides ones that I choose to take on myself. But my point being that the communities that are formed of people who don't have other communities or are not part of other groups are the strongest communities. Like I find our fake whale community, which I find you to be a big part of, many artists, where we don't, it's not like we need one another. That actually is kind of the crux of it all. I find communities to be the best when you don't need each other, when you
the,
want, when you choose to be with each other. And that's really funny, because as I'm saying that, I realize that's the same exact way I feel about like all relationships.
yeah,
Like I never want to be married because every morning I want to wake up and make the decision to be with that person,
yeah,
because to me that's way more romantic, and that's way more sustainable and economical even. So for me, I'm aligned with you 100%. I want my community to be by choice 100%, and
yeah,
I want everybody participating in it to not feel that they have to or need to. The best communities are formed this way, and I think the strongest too. And we're seeing that definitely with the FakeWhale thing too. And just to make it a little personal, within the FakeWhale community, we talk when we can. We don't all keep in touch all the time. Not even me and Sky. We try, but when we talk, we're brothers. We're on the same page all the time. But it's not. We don't bother one another.
I mean, this is a good point that about working instead of elbow with elbow physically is by the web. You can work IP with IP. So I enjoy a lot this, because when I work in the streets, for me it's not annoying, but it's not my good place, to working physically with more people. But now you can work in, like you said, that is in your computer, and it's organically that you don't have to speak every day with your community, because you know that you are busy on your side, and you know that the other guys are busy on their side, not annoying. And then when the things go, if the things flow nice, they collide and they get burned. But in the other way, when you have to tell people what to do to get your approach, for me this is
community guidelines. As soon as there's community guidelines,
what is this? And the white list and this kind of words for me are really. I mean, I understand them, of course, but I think we are playing in different codes in this case, and I prefer the ones you said, because I arrived FakeWhale with no intention at all. We start to speak, and then happens that and that, and now I'm talking with you. My intention is none. It was more that finally meet you. It was the first intention, and from now and the future, I think we all will keep working in the same code.
Absolutely, and that's a really good. That's a really good way to make it personal between you and I, is that we've known each other a year and a half now, and this is the first time we've actually spoke in person, and but we never needed or asked each other for much or anything, So I love it.
It happens to me that I don't have a need to speak with somebody when I feel and I know that in the future will happen by flow. If it doesn't happen, maybe there is a reason. Okay, I let it go. But if I feel that I have connection, because I know your work, and I love reading art, and so I can see more than less how you are reading your work, and I think, okay, it will be a nice conversation, because I am having a conversation with your pieces, so I have another one with the, but in the other side, I don't like, when you don't like about what the guy is saying in his work, for me it's very hard to speak with them or even try to approach him. I'm not interested in that. And I think it's like it happens to you, that you are always so busy that you don't even have time to make new friends. It's like, okay, I have to pick very few friends because I can't even talk with my parents every day. So you have to.
I'm actually very lucky to be in the position I am now with FakeWhale doing these interviews, because I make a lot of friends through this community now. And that I was actually going to bring that up, is that personally I have more community now than I ever did before. I have more real friends and have met more people even in real life, more physical connection with people, but it's all because of this outlet I have now, and working through Web3 community and everything, and the people that I've met through that is more of a community now that happened organically than ever before in my entire life. I've never been part of an artistic community, and now I feel so fulfilled where I speak with creatives, on a regular basis. And
this is the real engagement. I call that. This is the real. And I read your tweet. You I think it was 2 days ago that you explained that doing this is making you allow to understand better you, because sometimes you don't agree, but you have to stay in an interviewer point of view. And I applaud this, because I think it's really nutritive when, for example, I enjoy a lot speaking with people that think opposite than me. I hate speaking with people that think the same as me, because it's like a mirror. Okay, what the fuck? So this thing of you are doing, of being the interviewer of people that maybe you don't fully agree their words or their works, is a super nutritive. So I applaud that, and I feel
thank you.
I feel you too, because I love to doing that, not in recording, but I love that is when somebody touch you in some point of your brain with something you don't like. Maybe it's because maybe you like it and you start to think, and so I think it's
it forces me. I think what I was alluding to in that tweet that you're talking about, it forces me to like really come to terms with my own intentions, my own beliefs, and a lot of the times we as humans, as people, like we'll just have a belief and not really know why. We won't have questioned it as much as we should. We should prod all of our beliefs and all of our ideas. and make sure they're somewhat bulletproof so that they don't spill out. You know, I say we should do that before they spill out, right? Anyways, I find that this has really helped with that. When people may touch on something where it's like, I feel like I have a strong feeling about that, but why? I don't like, if I can't back up 1000%, you know, then I have to sit there and be like, okay, what's going on? And sometimes it's like what you said. Maybe it's because I actually do like it, you know, like, what do I have going on with this thing? And like, I think that's what I said in that tweet, like, makes me look at myself a lot.
Otherwise, you wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. And the ones I saw, I perceived you as really interested, and you usually do key questions that in another interviews I don't see. You know, because you don't only speak. How are your sales, and when you start in NFT, and what was your NFT platform? This is, for me, it's boring. But when you start to speak,
it's the most boring.
Yeah, but for me,
what if in the traditional, the physical art world, that's what they talked about, you know? It would be ridiculous. It would be ridiculous. Like,
and nowadays we have a lot of different branches to speak about, and I mean, for me, it's very important to understand how for example, how the creative process is in the mind of the people more than the piece, because the piece is a piece of art, a piece of this art, a piece of how the guy translate his thoughts into a piece of art. So for me, most times is, you know, when you see a film and you like it, but then you see the making of and you like it more. It's something like this. Sometimes I prefer
process. However, you know,
it's more inspiring. So I think.
Speaking of process, I would like to talk about yours, of course. And before getting into that, or let's use this to get into it. What music do you listen to when working? Just your own, or none at all? Or this is a bad question because you've already kind of noted that you don't really listen to music, but I know you do listen to music, maybe just not when you work. But what music inspires you? I saw you talked about rappers earlier. You like rap, and then you sometimes said you look up their interviews. But I also know you like metal and extreme forms of metal and things like that. So talk a little bit about some of your inspirations from music. You can spread into, you know, other inspiration, but I would like to use this as a conduit to talk about your personal process and what inspires you, the content of your work, and like exactly what you're saying, the real important stuff of the creative practice.
Yeah, I mean, I always listen to music. I don't have TV. I don't want TV. So music is running in my house 24/7. Even when I sleep, I put music. But let's say that metal and rap and electronic were where I grew up. But nowadays I don't differ music. It's like, okay, this is flamenco and I like it. Okay, I love jazz. I love piano. I love OSTs. I love big pack and music. This kind of thing. I love, for example, I am a drummer, so I love a lot of, Egyptian darbukas and South American djembes. But for example, a tweet I usually wrote is that I say that I do GIFs because I love music. When I say this, I mean that one day I realized that I was doing GIFs because if I edit video, I can't listen to music because I have to be paying attention to the sound of the video. So I discovered myself one day that I love music, so I love to listen a lot of albums every day. And this is the reason why I do GIFs. And in the time, for example, when I working in, for example, in the hypnotic machines and the visual beats, I usually play. There is a German label that is called Samurai Records, that they do a kind of, I call it black and white drum and bass because it has no melodies. It's very meditative.
Can you say the
Samurai Records? Samurai. Yeah, and if you look Samurai Records Germany, it's only a label, and they have, for example, Handmade Weapons is a band, Pressure, but you will see that they all have, the sound that you play here before we enter, I don't know if you listen it, is in this kind of vibe that is really strong sub bass, really sometimes asyncopated rings, but inside the techno vibe, but not colorful. There are subtle melodies. But at the same time, when I have to work fast, I go with drum and bass or experimental drum and bass, but for example metal. Despite I grew up in metal and I play in a band of metal, nothing important. But nowadays I don't listen too much metal because the new metal that is appearing, I'm not really interested. So I try to go to maybe to rescue albums I didn't listen when I was 15, and nowadays I'm doing a lot. I don't know. For example, I never listened to much Led Zeppelin. Because I jumped through death metal. So for me, I was listening Cannibal Corpse, and for me was Led Zeppelin is not nice. But nowadays I'm trying again to to taste them again.
I'm all right with you right there. Like
Yeah,
with that, I do that same exact thing, man.
you
I
were
didn't really ever get into Black Sabbath, and I still don't like a lot of Black Sabbath albums. But I recently got into the first Black Sabbath album, and it rips. But
yeah,
like back in the day, I was like, that's classic rock or some
yeah,
shit to
yeah.
me, you know.
Like what? But I think it has to be because my father is a metalhead, and since I was child, he was showing me, Iron Maiden LPs, and even relating it with the aesthetics, because I drank from since child
Mhm.
these aesthetics of the Peace of Mind, the
Very
Iron
cool.
Maiden or Judas Priest or Black Sabbath. But at the same time, I think when you are 14, 15, the authority figures are your parents, so what they told you is not good. Until
Yep,
one day,
100%. Yep.
yeah, until one day, my parents showed me the made in Japan of Deep Purple from the 679, and I was like,
Mm.
wow, what I'm listening this shit when I have this, so this is when I start to start into music. But nowadays, I don't care. I mean, I listen a lot of rap, mostly in Spanish, because I love poetry. I write a lot of poetry, and I love the play of words and these kind of things. And
Mhm.
I don't listen mainstream rap, but there are some kind of rappers that trigger give me ideas, because they say in a verse a very nice gift, because words are images, so I can translate. So when I don't know
They
what.
say a nice gift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that they say a nice gift in their raps. That's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
There is some rappers here in Spain that I contact them like, hey, you write very nice gifts, because a quote me, I translate it into image. So when I work in something, I listen rap, and oh, this quote is nice. I wrote it and then try to translate. But at the same time, there is something in the other way that instrumental music I think is the best to work. Something deep with not
Yeah, I
melodies.
understand that. I find a lot of digital artists like the electronic music, which makes total sense. A lot say drum and bass too. Coders say drum and bass. The which makes sense too. But yeah, I love everything you're saying. The rapper thing's really interesting because like I'm really into rap too. Probably everybody that pays attention to this knows. Um, in I find the real shame of rap now having many international friends that also like rap is that it's so regional because like people who really like rap really like lyrics, really like poetry, and then the like you now and Ale and Sky too and other people we talk about rap, but for them it's different because great rappers in English, to them they can't understand a lot of it, and they might not even get references or slang and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not anywhere near the same thing. And I never really thought about that before, like how it's so strange, like that when I'm listening to Pusha T, that they're hearing the same thing but hearing something different, or like translating something different, and they're
Yeah,
not getting. It's very difficult. Whereas death metal, you could probably because I don't know what a fucking death metal vocalist is saying either.
yeah,
But
but
with
it's
rap,
easy
it's
to
so
know.
different. It's so different, and I like how
Yeah, I
does
mean,
that bridge get gapped? Like how do like that's really interesting to me. There's no answer, and I don't. It's just something that's come up a bunch because everybody that likes rap, you really do have to like lyrics. You have to
yeah,
want to
yeah.
listen to the story. You want to have to, because the story of a rapper is the best. Like that's, yeah. So do you
I
listen to
think
any
that
English rap?
translating for when I listen to some American hip hop, for example, I don't know, Puya or Ghostmain or Suicide Boys or these kind of things that appeared some years ago here in Spain. I love the music because it's strong and all this 808 broken, but I need to read the lyrics because sometimes
Mm.
I feel that, oh, I'm getting some reference, Alistair Crowley, and maybe this is interesting. So I go to check the lyrics, and most times
Oh,
it is fucking better because now I understand how they play with words and how the
yeah.
music fit. Maybe they are speaking about rolling and they put the high frequency pass, and for me, it will be like watching a painting blur. When I understand the lyrics is when okay, now I see the painting, because
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes happens the opposite. Oh, this song is nice. You read the lyrics, is wow, what the fuck is this? This is, this guy is stupid.
That's the
So
worst.
I think this is the poetry has the two sides, the rhythmic one, the phonetic one, that I don't need to understand the lyrics because the flows are like a percussion,
Mhm.
like a djembe, like tra 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 tra. But then has the other side that I love, that is writing the lyrics and the metaphors, because I insist. For me, words are images. So when I listen
Mhm.
a good bar, it built me a GIF. Okay, I can translate this into a GIF because GIFs are loops, and so everything is together. At the same time, is a music for me is life. If there's no music in my day, it will be. I hate when my house is right now without music because I feel it really alone and cold. Like okay, I put some music or some VOST and it's okay. Now it's a shelter for me, the music. And if I can use headphones by night when I have to work really strong, I put headphones. You generate this bubble, that you are only in the computer and your bubble. And I love this sense, when you are connected with the music and working and you forget even about your body. You are only screen. Yeah. I love that. Now, music is, I think, the best invent of the world. We made it, for sure. Even more than GIFs, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think that we invented music. I feel like music existed, music's like a force of nature.
Yeah, we developed it, but yes, we discovered it, but not yet.
I admire music and for so many reasons that it's like, it hits you in a way that other forms of art can't for some reason. And I don't mean to I used to put down visual art in that way, saying like it could never compare to music because music is more universal. It will hit you in a way internally that you don't have any control over, in those very visceral, deep ways where it welds something up that you weren't prepared for. Whereas art it's different, but I have given it to art over time, whereas like what music can't do is just within less than a second punch you and knock the wind out of you because it needs time to play out.
Exactly.
Whereas image you can take in completely in one thing, and there's a beauty in that too. It's just how you use them.
It's easier to have ghost bumps is the word when you feel in your skin emotion.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
It's more easy with music than with visuals, for example.
Yes.
Music don't have the visual impact, and it's you who is building this image.
What is that?
What is
that? Because you're saying exactly that. Because I get chills. Like I really like when people are in the car with me sometimes, and I'll be listening to music, and I'll like something I really love, and I'll get chills. They'll even see it, and they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, I just fucking love this."
Or even cry.
Down years and years ago, like I do everything for that chill that runs up your spine, the goosebumps that you get. Is everything to me.
Yes.
I'll work for a year to get 1 second of that. That is the ultimate drug. That. I know exactly what you mean.
I live for these moments. I think when you find this and you feel that when you're in the car alone in the highway and some song appears, is when you think, okay, life is nice. And maybe it's your worst day ever, but it's
the most fleeting moment. The most fleeting. You can do nothing to grab onto it. All you want to do is bottle it, but you can't. It's the most.
I love you said bottle it. You said, okay, because I used to speak to my friends that when they have a nice feeling, they have to use as a perfume in a little bottle, not to forget. And when you are back or whenever, go to this song again. And do you play or sing in a band or whatever? Do you play as an instrument? No. So you are only enjoying it and okay.
I used to want to be a rock star, as cliche as that sounds. As a child growing up in the country, I wanted to. I really romanticized that, like wow. That obviously changed, but for a long time, my main love in life, even though I was doing art all along, was music. I just didn't have the patience to learn an instrument. It didn't come naturally enough to me that I could apply myself to it. And so I blew off learning instruments, which is kind of a regret later in life. Not that I have big regrets, but like, I really wish I knew instruments, but I just didn't have the patience. I remember even as a child, like learning or hearing later that I always was blowing off recitals and not doing my practices. But then I went down the art path because that came easy to me. I was like, blah, 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 or whatever. And maybe that was lazy, but no.
But sometimes I think it's wise to know our limits because sometimes we have some dreams that we think we can achieve. And it's better to, I also wanted to be a rock star and the best drummer in the world, and blah, blah, blah. But one day I discovered the photography and I said, maybe the battery will be for a hobby and I don't have to trip. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we have to face these dreams. I always wanted to be I also wanted to be an architect when I finished bachelor, but then I realized that I'm very bad at math. So, okay, let's stop down and let's go. So it's when you start to look for yourself. I don't know. And music is still nowadays. I have here a MIDI drum. I play for my, for my joy, no more. I don't plan to have a band, but at the same time, it's like the musician dream is something that is, if there is a next life, a reincarnation or whatever, I will try to be a painter or a musician, because I love both of. But I have to choose. It's like, okay, we'll have to choose the pixels, and maybe in the next life I am a painter. I don't know.
I got really lucky in this life where because of my love for music, I got very involved in the music scene and the music industry in some respects. And I have a record label now, and I'm friends with a lot of musicians and get to work with musicians very closely on record art and all that kind of stuff. And it's really rewarding, but it keeps enough distance that I can remain an objective fan, which can be hard when you get close to something. Where a lot of musician friends of mine, I don't think that they have the passion for music that I do, maybe for making it and maybe their own, but they definitely don't have like the passion of like, I'm going to spend all my money. I'll go broke buying records because they're so meaningful to me. And like the music is it means so much to me, and they wouldn't, and like, so I find it that my life worked out perfectly with music. And I think in my next life, like you said, I would be a race car driver. I wouldn't be a musician anymore. But I know what you mean about the life thing, because like, I want to be a race car driver.
No, but I feel this irony, because sometimes it happens to me that I am with musicians and I feel that they are not so passionate as we could do. But I
get jaded.
Yeah, but I think it has a reason, because it's their work, and when something becomes your work is when you feel more jaded. But so in some way we are lucky of not being musicians and can be able to watch it from outside, and maybe in the next life we can do a band.
Most musicians say they want to be artists though too. Tons of musicians say that, like that they envy the artists and they look to the artists, romantically and whatever. So it works both ways, right? And but I mean, I wouldn't give up my position for anything at this point. But everybody wants to be a rock star at some point in their life, right?
Yeah. And if you have a close circle of musicians, it's enough, because I work as a video jockey for a hip hop band. So I am involved in it. I do live sessions with my video jockey.
That's wonderful.
So I don't have to I don't want to be a musician, because I work with them already on live. So I feel a musician. So it's perfect. Everything.
Yeah. I don't want to be a musician anymore either. I don't really want to. I released a record though. Like I like tricked a bunch of musicians into making songs out of my music or sounds out of my noises, and stuff. There's other ways to do it and be a part of it. But this idea of live video remixing for a hip hop group, is that right? That's super cool. Like, how? Like, can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, actually, when I was 15 years ago, I was a fan of these guys. When I started to listen rap, they are the first band rapping in Galician, because I live in the northwest of Spain, in Galicia. We speak Galician here. I'm not from Barcelona or Madrid. I am from a very rural place, and they were the first band rapping in this language. And I was very fan of them. And years later, when I started to do the animation of street art, because both of them, two of them of the band, they are also street artists, and they are some of the walls I animated are from them. So they are part of a hip hop band, and they are street artists too. So they discovered me through the street art walls, and we became friends very quick, despite they are, I think, 12 years older than me. And they embraced me as I was 21 or something like this. For me, it was like, oh, wow, my one of my idols. They like my work, and nowadays I live in the same town as them. I work with them in everything, because they organize a street art festival too, and I usually do the photo and the video for the documentary. And it was when I was in 2015, I think, in Miami, doing loops for DA Snake for a month. The worst shit I ever did, because it was totally out of my life and of my codes. I was there as a month because I was having a problematic year, and it was like in the field. Okay, I go to America, then I come back. And when I come back, they asked me do you want to use your GIFs? Because GIFs and loops and video jockey are the same in the same package. I know all their songs from memory, even the lyrics. So we started to prepare a live. So for each song, I think I do everything by hand. I don't. I go with 17 loops for each song, and then in live I project depending on the lyrics and the reason. So nowadays I feel very comfy too, because I have a lot of previous work that was never published that they know, because I show them. For this song we can use that. For this song, and nowadays we are doing past week we do a couple of concerts with big screens, because some years ago we have to use little projector with retro projection, and it was crazy because we have to mount all the stuff. Nowadays the LED screens are more common, so when we arrive at a place we see a 6 meter, 4 meter wide screen, and for me it's like a dream because I am watching them in live. I am in the backside with my MPC and my MIDI controllers, and for me the fact of pushing a button with my GIF and watch them in a huge screen and and play with it, it's a dream come true. At the same time, they are not, everything is together because it's the music, it's my loops, the projection, and the video. So it's like when I eat this, it's like if you don't want to pay me, it's okay too because it's a pleasure for me. So it's giving up that.
What is the name of the band or the hip hop group?
Dios que te crio. I can write it here.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Dios que te crio.
Yeah. It's a play
DIOSKETEKR or CREW for everybody listen. That's DIOSKETE crew. CREW.
It's like a play of words like the crew of the gods, let's say, because in Spanish,
great.
It's a play of words. But you listen because they started more hip hop, old school, boom bap. Nowadays they are using trap style and electronic, and they are mixing a lot. And so if you come to Spain, you are invited for our concert. They are usually crazy. For
I'll
sure.
be there. That sounds really, really cool. I love that. This brings up your process as well, though, like your actual process. Like you said that you do everything by hand within that, within that last segment. So can you talk about that? You say you use light, I love that term, like that's your medium as if it's paint, So can you talk about that somewhat concisely if possible? Like even for me to understand your exact, like you don't have to give away secrets, of course, but like you talk about doing everything very much meticulously by hand. And personally, as someone who's not using processes or maybe not even the same tools as you, I would like to understand your process a little better, the actual process. Can you speak about it, please? Thanks.
Yeah, and I feel very close with what you say, and with painters when they say we work by hand because I use my hands with my mouse and my. The only difference is that you put paint, and I put light because when I take a picture, I am capturing light. And for me, the work starts when I have it in my screen, when I have the image I want to play with it. And I start to play, when I speak about techniques, it's not a secret because I use a lot of techniques that are not secrets. The point is how I use them. And even more is the final point, because creating for picture or for video is already done. I mean, we are not Pixar. Everything about video is done for me. But the GIF is what allows me new isms, let's say, okay? Because the GIFs have some characteristics that videos don't. And how can I explain? It's like I always explain like a bonsai. When you have to prune a bonsai, you have to know the techniques and you have to know the tools, the little scissors and this kind of thing. So about the process is usually, I usually have two ways of working. Is one of them, and the one I like most is from words. I wrote a little quote. I think about 12,000 quotes since I am a child. So I take a quote and then I think how to translate this idea into a GIF or whatever. For example, I always explain this because it's easy to understand. One day I was thinking about freedom and slavery and and I wrote that we are slaves of our own freedom. This fact of working for our own freedom is a kind of slavery because it's impossible. We are So I love the quote, and I start to think how to translate this minimalistic in a GIF. And it was in the street walking. I saw the classical fences that do this kind of, it's a fence.
Yeah.
I saw I saw the fence, and I think, okay, if I take small things, they are birds. So a fence is an archetype of slavery, and the birds is an archetype of freedom. And it was like in a second, okay, I have to now. I go home and prepare the video, the photo, and the look. And most of these ideas born from quotes, and this is the reason I love poetry, because when I say a quote, the image appears in my head, so I have to think how to develop it. And in the other side, more in the abstract side, let's say that as the hypnotic machines and the visual beats and all these kind of words is the opposite. I play a lot with a lot of techniques and visuals, and when I find something that speaks to me, I start to follow the flow. For example, these hypnotic machines are done using pictures that I decomposed in very blur image, and they create a kind of generative aesthetic, but it's not generative because it's born from a picture always. But I learn how to rate this chaos, and I duplicate it and I create the mandala, let's say, and then the mandala moves. So it's when I go behind them. Okay, the mandala is moving like this, so I will put a light here. So after repeating it a lot of times, it becomes already a workflow. So I know how to, if I want to go abstract, I will write poetry. Let's say I will write what the life is telling me. But if I want to go figurative, it's me telling life. You understand? It's like a two sides. For abstract poetry, for figurative prose, or something like this. I don't know, but because in the process, maybe it happens to you that you are staining some picture, and it suggests another idea, and you have to stop to go to the other idea. It happens to me a lot. So I have many works like this because the process is like a a tree, you know. And the good side of today of digital art is that we have the Command Alt S. I mean, we can copy we can save the parallel work. We don't have to finish it and then start again. So this is different because when you work in painting, you have to wait to dry, and maybe you have to start from scratch, and you can go Control Theta. But digital art break that.
Yeah, with painting, I have bins, bro. I have bins of like medium finish, half finish. Like I have like physical bins of works that are like mid that I go back to all the time. And it's probably very similar to going into like a work in progress folder, where I'll go through a bin of like, you know, half finished collages or things, and always pulling out something new. So, and I agree with this Web3 and NFT ecosystem. It allows us to kind of explore a lot of that interim work and expose a lot more. But speaking directly about your work, you brought up the chain link fence turned into the birds, which is one of your more iconic pieces, I would say. The top image in the FakeWhale right up on you is the endless swimmer, which I don't think I had seen before, but that's an insane piece. Where is that minted?
I think it's in Maker's Place 2 years ago. Okay. And let me explain.
It's an insane piece. Yeah, go ahead.
I explain because it's related with what we're talking right now. Is this work came from another quote. In all these years that I have to watch my work being shared in Instagram and all things, and hey, me, I am alive. Stop sharing my work. And the quote was something like, "The inner search is not on the web." I mean, all our inner search is the title of the piece. The inner search is not in the web history. In the world that everybody's put eyes on the web, it's easy to see the people how they develop. But I wasn't in the web, so my inner search you can't find it in the web. So the way of symbolizing this was like a guy who is eternally swimming against the flow, and all the lines that are going like this are that. It's that since I was taking my head, but I have to keep going. So it's just this. And sometimes it's as I always say, memories are gifts. And so I think in this codes. I defend this because it's not the same thinking. For example, to pose for a picture, you have to pose for a picture still. If you have to pose for a video, it's different. But to pose for a GIF is different because you have to do the exact repeated motion, or you can do this kind of shit of auto-tune of GIFs that they do this moment that is fake. So I don't know. In this case of pieces, it's more the quote, and this is the reason I use the title. Because I know also the problem of many artists that they do a piece and then they spend 3 weeks for the title. No, I do the opposite. I first write the title, and then and this is is a kind of funny, because it's what AIs are doing nowadays. You answer the title and they give you the piece. I don't. It's the same. But I use my brain as as the artificial intelligence. I mean, I think about a quote and my head thinks how to do it, and maybe it takes me more time, but I think it's pretty different of all those things. So ideas for me are essential. It's not only about aesthetics, even more in a world that computers create aesthetics automatically. So for me, the idea must prevail overall.
That's really interesting.
We have a crazy year.
I'm still very on aesthetics. Like, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts about some of that GAN stuff was, because it is such a hot topic, and I'm quite, interested and somewhat torn in many directions with it. What is your take on GAN artwork? Like you said, like having having machines that can make art now or make an image. It's not all about the image, as you say. Like, what's your thoughts here?
I mean, personally, I think stick to my ideas instead of the aesthetics because I'm not good about animation. I'm not good about aesthetics. I'm not good about people who do 3D animation, incredible. I can't do that. So I must stick to the idea of the piece. Not maybe I'm not explaining correctly. I know my limits. I know that I can do a 3D incredible work as Brandon or David Leeser or these people I admire because it's out of my hands. But I think I'm better on summarizing a very specific concept that most people realize in a GIF. And GIF has the good side that is low quality by itself. You don't have to do something very, it's like watching old books. Old book it's a book already. I'm interested on the message. So about this artificial intelligence and Neuralink and neural networks working to fit each other, I find them very interesting, but in the same way as when social networks appear. I am quite far. I let people use them because I don't know where it's going, and I don't need them. I never have all these years a need to. Actually, I was using something similar years ago to modify a lot of frames. I already did, and I think, okay, I don't see too much sense. I think it's nice, for example, nowadays to get sketches but this thing some people is doing that. You answer a prompt and you get a piece and you point it. For me, it's like if I go to the forest, I take a picture of a random tree and I say use generative art because it's not under my control. It's doing it, but autonomous system, it's the same. But there is some people that is taming these AIs. They use them, they learn how they learn, and they hack them. But the other side is like, I don't know. And I think it will, you saw already some hypes here. First, the PFP, and then the astronauts, and then the blah, blah. Now it's AI. In 5 months, another one will appear, and, Mid-Journey will be forgotten, and Diffusion will be forgotten. It's part of the evolution. And I was, as we were seeing in Tumblr many of them already. It's like, okay. I don't fear them. It's like, when photography appeared, painters were crazy. And nowadays, I have photographer and painter friends. It's not. For me, technology is a tool to keep evolving. It's nothing to
fear for sure. Nothing to fear for sure. Like
the people who fear them are the ones who have no ideas. Of course.
Yeah, well, that's exactly like I wrote recently. If an AI can replicate you, you deserve to be out of a job. And I'll stand by that. Because I don't think an AI can do what I do. Like, they might be able to make an image that looks similar to mine, but like, it just doesn't even it's not even close. But if you're worried about losing your job because AIs can make images, like, you must suck. Sorry. Yeah. Like, hey, that's just it.
Totally agree. Because one day, one guy told me that he wrote replicate a visual massage like Crego, and the IA couldn't expect it because I'm not in a big data center. But I told him, if one day this IA replicate what I do, I will change. I don't care.
Yeah,
because
exactly. I'll do something else. I can do other things. Like, I've done so many fucking things, like it just doesn't. Yeah. It was a conversation I was having where somebody was saying that, like, a fear for the future that somebody was working on, writing or talking about this, of like a fear for the future where you're going to be able to enter in any name of an artist and say, like, yada yada in the style of, and then get that image, and the person, you won't have to hire the person anymore, yada yada. And I was just like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, I don't think that's not me. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, if an AI can do that, the person that is now irrelevant, like, was irrelevant to me already. And then it was like, but now machines are just taking the jobs or whatever. And I was like, I would rather have a machine copying me than another human being. If it comes down to that as well.
and it's a lie that it's a lie partially because when all these past years machines were appearing in automatic jobs, they say, oh no, it's taking the job of people. And I always say, wait, it's taking the job of one guy because this machine is made by maybe 20 more people. I mean, these automatic things are not made by God. There is a software designer, there is a huge team of people behind. So
well, I guess it's a shift of the employment and like who has the job and everything, but also too it like harkens the question of just like, well, why do people have to do labor just to get by in life? Like there's no prerequisite or like book or great word from up high that says you must work labor in order to live. What is wrong? Let the machines do the fucking work. Like everybody can just read books or go on walks in the woods or something, whatever the fuck. However you want to contribute to society, but like you don't need to work to live. Like if everybody just thinks that, sorry, just so everybody knows, like the idea of working to live is something that was put on us.
Sure. But at the same time, the fact that AIs appear doesn't mean that we stop being humans. I try to say that when I see all these pieces that are appearing made with AIs, I get inspired too. It's like we learn from them too, but they are learning.
Well, I get inspired to want to make better shit than that. Yeah, I get inspired by it where I see it. I'm like, that's interesting. I can do cooler shit though. Fuck robots, or whatever. Yeah. Like, fuck that AI. Like, I sometimes see very interesting stuff and want to be like, and sometimes it's angering almost, but.
It's a question of adaptation because I always say that evolution doesn't wait for us to understand. It's okay.
Yeah.
Adapt or die is no more because we can go back in time and don't invent AIs. Understand them doesn't mean that you have to use them, but study them to know how the world is working. Because I try to be aware of that when I use YouTube to watch. I don't know. There is a Spanish guy who speaks a lot about robotics and artificial intelligence. I watch his videos because I want to be in my time. I don't want to get in the past and only using Photoshop.
Absolutely.
At the same time, I don't need it by now. If one day I feel it, or I don't know, or maybe collaboration with one artist that uses, okay. But I never have this need of even more because I play with the card of the GIF. Is maybe artificial intelligence can do picture and videos and GIFs because GIF was always forgotten. So for me, GIF is my temple where everything is new. I have this card and that makes me feel comfortable and secure about that because GIF is like, okay, GIF is another way. At the same time, maybe it's my fault because people think that I do GIFs because I don't do photo and video. And for me, it's the opposite. I start to do GIFs when I get bored of photo and video. I was many in photography and video, but I felt that for me, photo was limited to express some of my things because for me, ideas are in motion, are not pictures. But video was, if you let me do a video, I put a lot of information. I know how I am. So I have to think a midpoint. And it was the same days I started to write a lot of quotes. And I think, okay, a quote is a GIF. It's a very specific thing that I can insist on it for eternity. So in this sense, there is no artificial intelligence that are doing GIFs. So by now I am secure. Maybe in the future I have to change, but I don't know.
That's really interesting. I never even thought about that, but the idea of GIF AI.
GIF is usually omitted, I think. I'm trying to...
I love your dedication to the GIF. The temple of GIF you just said, before Web3, I've always liked GIFs, obviously, especially Tumblr. GIFs were everywhere, but this reverence for GIF is a new thing to me that I really, really like because in a way it's almost retro futuristic, right? It's just
exactly.
It's an old technology. You've been doing it for a very long time, but it looks brand new still. But your work looks futuristic even.
Let me explain because is something that people don't understand what I do GIFs is. GIFs are in the future because when GIF appeared, the technology was not enough. GIFs start to go strong about 2010, 2014 when we have finally screens in our hands and good connection because GIF is from the internet. It's not outside. And this is one more reason I was trying to explain that GIFs needed NFTs because there was already authentication for photo, video, digital art. This already was. But for example, I have many problems with celebrities and it happened with Jodorowsky, with Alejandro Jodorowsky, for example, used one of my GIFs for one of his books to promote it.
Oh.
I have explained it in Tumblr. In 2015 happened to me. I was young. I was like, on one hand, very honored because I love his guy since I was a child, but since this day I stopped admiring him because I have to write him speaking with his lawyers for months just to ask them to credit my work. I didn't say I didn't say delete that. I just say, hey, please credit this because you have 2 million likes in your Facebook account. You are making money from your book, And this is the point I start to think, okay, I need a kind of document because I tried to denounce him, but as it was a GIF, it was not important. It's not a photo, it's not a video. You can't denounce it. But now, this is the reason I was looking for NFT, not to make millions, to have a way of protect my work because it's being used in everywhere. So this point was a very nice point for me because, okay, somebody I deeply admire, recognize my work, but at the same time, fuck you, because you are using it and I'm telling you that you only have to credit it, I'm not trying to sell you this gift, even so. So I learned a lot this year for more things in this,
No, I love that story. That's interesting, actually. Yeah, who knew Hodorowski? But I also like what you're saying about NFTs being essential and this Web3 being essential, and to wrap this up and bring it back all the way to the beginning, is that we talked about Tumblr, and you're totally right about how the virality of Tumblr would go, and some of your pieces you would see later on, and they would have more likes and more notes or whatever it was on Tumblr, but they would have more reblogs and more notes than any of your other shit, just like an astronomical amount. And you had lost credit somewhere in that long chain. You were no longer anywhere in there. You look down, my name anywhere blinks and nothing. You're just like, fuck. My most seen thing doesn't even have my fucking name on it. Nobody even knows. And that's exactly what you're talking about. So like,
this I meant a text I wrote in 2014 talking about this, and what you say right now is a concept I explained. I call it the erosion of sharing, because it happens. Like people love things and they share, and this happens because a concept I invented in Tumblr times, that is the digital wins. I mean, if you find in the street, a poster of a band you like, you take it and you take it home. Maybe you share with your friends, but in the web is the same. People find my work or yours in Tumblr, they like it, they grab it, and they post it in their Facebook. The point here is the ego side, that people, when post your work, for example, in their Facebook, they feel that these likes are for them when are for your work. I discovered this because when I find this kind of people, I wrote them, hey, mate, thanks for the sharing, but can you credit me? Because maybe people want to know more of my work. Let's say of 10 times, 9, they prefer to delete it rather than put your name.
Really?
And my conclusion is this, because they feel that these likes are for them, because you have a blog and you have a lot of likes and blah, blah, blah. But it's not, it's like if you're putting a Da Vinci piece in your house and you feel it's yours. No, mate, it's not your merit. So
I painted that.
Yeah, so the days I start to think about, I have to look for a way to have a control of my work, not to get millionaire, just to have a proof that this work is mine, because in the future, maybe this will be recognized. So
it's not just about engagement, and that's what the influencer sees. They post your work, they see the likes, they think the likes are theirs because they see the engagement. The engagement's theirs, maybe, but my decision to post your work was what it did, whatever the fuck they're thinking. I totally understand. I think this is a beautiful place to close this up, just because we did wrap around right to the beginning. Like you and I both starting out kind of in the same place with Tumblr in our journey. Though they be different, we reconverge, and I find that to be really interesting. We both started Tumblr, kind of went separate ways. I really leaned heavily on Instagram. You were doing that, but I was aware of your work for a long time too. We were kind of satellites orbiting in the same universe, but never had like the same orbit. But now this Web3 orbit has brought us together, along with a bunch of other like-minded people.
I feel in the same boat, just to say, and I would like to say that in the future, I would like me to interview you, because I think you have many things to do too, and to say. You are wise and you have a lot of depth, I think, and here you only come once, so I will be grateful.
We'll keep that in mind, as you'll be a guest interviewer for me in the future. Sure. We'll do one of these episodes and flip the script. But for now, this was absolutely beautiful and perfect. I enjoyed talking to you. As you said, you met some colleagues of mine before, and they told me the same thing you said, where it's like online, one thing, you meet the guy, and what a sweetheart, what a wonderful person. There's no bad intentions, and that's the same exact impression I got here. I'm happy to be able to share more of you with everybody, so that we get this bigger picture, rather than just the small window of something you might find offensive that you say. Because everything you do say that somebody might take offense to, you are looking for the answers, and you only say it to improve something. And I
Yeah,
think that's the key. Only, you know, you only criticize with the intention of improving.
of
And
course.
that is something that, like, I think
Otherwise,
is to be
otherwise,
admired, and we should all, you
yeah.
know, strive
Otherwise, I
to
shut
be
up.
that way.
So, thanks for you for this. Thanks for Whale for this, because I am aware that when I'm giving voice, everything is better understood. So for me, it's really a pleasure, and feel honored when this happens. So thanks a lot, Whale and Gis, and keep on what you do, because you do it really pretty well. So thanks a lot.
I appreciate that, and we all appreciate that. Everybody, follow Al Crego on Twitter. You can see everything he's up to that way. And until next time, we appreciate you all.